Today we get to see what Stephen sees. I want you to picture the scene. Stephen, a deacon of the church, is standing before the Sanhedrin court. 70 elders of Israel, and suddenly, superimposed over the Sanhedrin is God's heavenly court, the two overlapping. Stephen finds himself standing at the very threshold of heaven and earth, and he sees them meeting in real time with the high priest and the fellow panel of judges before him. Stephen sees the scene from the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verses 9 through 14. And here I'll quote, "As I looked, the thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool, and his throne was a flaming fire, and its wheels were all ablaze, and a river of fire was flowing, coming out before him. And the court was seated, and the books were opened. And in my vision at night I looked, and before me was one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days, was led into his presence, and was given authority and glory and sovereign power, and all the nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom will never be destroyed." Stephen witnesses this ancient oracle now fulfilled by Jesus at his trial in Jerusalem. And this is very bad news for the Sanhedrin, because this much awaited, this epic making shift is taking place on their watch, and wow, have they bungled it badly. All right, so the faith of Israel is now being radically recentered with Jesus as the Messiah at the center. We've seen this theme before in recent weeks. God has now abandoned the temple as the center of Israel. He's abandoned it to its destruction. He's now taking up residence in Jesus' people. Heaven and earth now meet in them, not up on the Temple Mount. This is a very hard reality for them to face. So how do they respond? They stop up their ears, they yell, and they rush Stephen and execute him by stoning. So now we get to see what Stephen does. He prays for his persecutors. They've not seen anything like that except once. You know the story, right? Jesus during his crucifixion. The hero stories that these Judeans have learned from childhood is very different from Jesus and Stephen. They know the story of the Maccabees. Do you know the story of the Maccabees? Hopefully we'll have it in one of these weeks in our daily office. It's in the Apocrypha. It was about 200 years before Jesus when the Syrian general Antiochus Epiphanes invaded Israel, and he tried to stamp out the Jewish faith. Did it by attacking the core symbol of their faith, which is the temple. He tried to force Jews to renounce Yahweh by sacrificing pigs on the temple altar and eating pork as a burnt offering. Those Jews who refused were tortured to death. They died for days, and there were lots of them. And the book of Maccabees tells the story of their martyrs' courage. While dying hideous deaths, they proclaimed faith in Yahweh. They held fast to the coming resurrection of the body and the final judgment, and they uttered grave warnings of the tortures that God would inflict on their tormentors. It was definitely not, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." So Judas Maccabeus came along as the hero of the day, and he delivered Jerusalem. He defeated the Seleucids. This is the family that ruled Syria at the time. He expelled them from the Holy Land. And the name Maccabee means hammer in Hebrew. Judas the Hammer was the rescuer. He was the Messiah who saved Israel 200 years before Jesus. And it seemed like God's judgment on the Gentiles had begun. Now, this is the kind of death that many faithful Jews in Jesus' day were willing to die for God. And this is the kind of hammer Messiah that they expected to get from God. So Jesus was quite a surprise for them. Far from cursing on the cross, Jesus prayed for their forgiveness. And Stephen prays the same on his tormentors, just like Jesus. Stephen learned it from Jesus, whom he sees in glory in his vision so clearly. He can see Jesus, so he's not taking an adversarial stance. He can see Jesus, so he's loving his enemies. He can see Jesus, so he is praying for good to come upon them. So Stephen, like Jesus, becomes a radically new kind of Jewish martyr, the likes of which the world has never seen before. And it results in the conversion of many. Seeing martyrs die like that, they say the seed of the church is the blood of the martyrs. And this very first martyr, this very first Christian martyr, Stephen, his death results in the conversion of zealous Saul of Tarsus. Look for his name as you read these texts in Acts. And what a difference this martyrdom has made in the world. In the book of Acts, Stephen's death is a turning point for the church. The church goes from being a Jerusalem-based community to being now a scattered community, scattered by the rising tide of persecution. And like seeds scattered onto the ground, they germinate into communities of Messianic Jews all over the ancient world. They went forth with the news of Jesus to the Gentiles, and Jesus went forth with them as he promised, "I will be with you always, even to the end of the age," and they're overcoming immense adversity to change the world. It is a truly remarkable story, because this gospel message that they carry is a new thought to enter the human noggin, and it utterly changed the world in the centuries that followed. And you and I, folks, are part of this same grand narrative, just as Stephen was. So as you go into your week, scattered forth from St. Peter's into your schools, I guess school's out now, but to work, to your neighborhoods, to your friends, to your online activities, go like the disciples did after Stephen's death. See Jesus, the Son of Man, reigning over all things right now, and give your life a living sacrifice to give his love in tangible ways to those who oppose it, who might oppose you. That's the story from the Daily Office, the book of Acts. And this past week has been quite full, planning 2 funerals, and today I got to go and have lunch with my aunt and uncle. So I only have one video for you this week. So I will see you on Sunday, and I hope you enjoy reading the Bible every day. God bless you.